Hello friends and freundins, and welcome to the third episode of the Troglodyte channel. In this episode we're gonna make a nice cozy diorama to house my Waffentrager 88 model. And as I've said before, I'm not a very experienced modeler. In fact, sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing, but I will try my best. So, let us begin. In order to make the base of the diorama, I cut a large piece of styrofoam. It's approximately 25 by 25 centimeters. Then I placed on it the vehicle to get a rough impression of how everything would look. I marked the position of the tracks and the position of the walls. I also wanted to use these balsa wood sheets for the frame around the base of the diorama. But they were too small, so I ended up ordering larger ones. I marked the position of the walls and then I started cutting. I also made some impressions on the ground left by the tracks of the vehicle. Then I started making the walls. The walls, or what is left of them, are made of large pieces of stone. The roof of the building will be collapsed, and the walls will also be in total ruins, heavily weathered by the elements and the years of neglect. And of course, many of the stones were looted over the years by people from the surrounding villages, who only wanted a place to live, build with whatever means they had available. The main idea with this diorama is to try and create a very old farmhouse. And since I want to use my Waffentreger model on this, the scene will have to make some kind of chronological and topographical sense. So let's say spring of 1945, east of Berlin someplace. The vehicle is hidden inside this abandoned cottage, and I use the word inside loosely, waiting for the first elements of the Red Army to appear behind the hills. Yeah, that's a pretty good scenario in my mind. I took some rough measurements and then I started shaping the stones on the styrofoam with a pencil. And then I started cutting with my X-Acto knife. I tried to give the wall the irregular shape of abandonment. I also cut the remains of a window. I shaped the stones one by one with my pencil, and then I started adding some details on them to make them look older and eroded. Which unfortunately cannot be seen very clearly in this shot. But you will be able to see it a little bit later. After I was done with the walls, I started making the ground. The two basic materials were ground texture from Vallejo and carpet glue. Now why carpet glue, I do not know. I guess that was what I had available at the time. I also added some wood chippings, some gravel and some horsehair from a brush, which will not be visible at all in the end. For the coloration of the ground, I used dark brown from an unknown brand and light brown from Italeri. After I mixed everything together, I applied it on the base. While it was drying, I added some more gravel on top and then I let it aside. Then it was time to paint the walls. First with dark brown acrylic and then with a light coat of grey. Then I started painting some individual stones with different shades of grey or brown. After that, I dry brushed everything with white. Then I applied my own blackwash in all of the holes and indentations of the walls. And I wiped out all of the excess with a clean wet brush. I'm pretty satisfied with the way my walls look, considering these are the first walls I've ever made for a diorama. Once the ground of the diorama was dry, I started adding the details. I added some more wood chippings, some dirt, and many stones that have fallen off the walls. It was a slow and time-consuming process, because I would have to wait every time for the carpenter's glue to dry. I mean the combination of PVA and water. Then I started adding the various balsa sticks. These would make the structure of the collapsed roof. And later I will also add shingles. And choop! Thanks to movie magic, this is how it looks so far. I kept adding balsa sticks, gravel and wood chippings until I was satisfied with the result. Which is not what you are seeing right now, because later I added even more balsa sticks. The shingles I made from thin cardboard. Again I took some rough measurements based on a tiny house that I've made in the past. Then I painted them with red oxide primer. I weathered them a little bit and I cut them one by one. And that was it. They look okay. After that, I added some pieces of fabric to imitate the material that they would put between the wooden structure and the shingles. I'm not exactly sure if they would do it that way back then, but I suppose they would need some type of insulation. So I am allowed to take some liberties. And it turns out I was correct, because they look really nice in the end result. Then I used the pencil to trace the shape of the diorama on the balsa wood. I then cut the parts with my X-Acto knife and I smoothed the edges with some light sandpaper. I then glued it on the sides and waited for the glue to dry. After it was dried, I filled in all of the gaps between the balsa wood and the styrofoam. I used a little bit of ground texture mixed with brown. And I know that the difference with the previous brown is really visible, but it won't be by the time this diorama gets finished. Then I carefully cut all of the pieces that were sticking out of the balsa frame. This way, the edges of my diorama will look nice and smooth. After the PVA glue was finally dry, it was time to start painting the terrain. First, I used a combination of brown and light grey to paint the ground, which I painted with my airbrush. It was obviously much easier that way. This is the finished look of the ground. Everything else I painted with my paintbrushes. I used the darker grey to paint the individual stones on the ground. Next I painted all of the wooden elements with a mixture of brownish grey to give the impression of old wood. I had to paint all of the boards and sticks one by one, which was challenging at times, but I did my best. Once I was done, it was time to paint all of the smaller individual stones and pebbles. I used a combination of colors like brown, grey and white, mixed in ways that they would match their surroundings. And then I started painting them one by one. It is not a very pleasant thing to do, but it adds so much detail and makes the end result look even better in the end. You can mostly see my head on the shots, but you can also see a little bit of painting. Then I painted the tarps with a light faded green. Which I think was a good color choice, because it matches nicely with the rest of the collapsed structure. Then it was finally time to add the shingles, which is the final element I will add in this diorama, and I also think it is the most important one. The shingles are painted bright red and they stand out amazingly, in comparison to the rest of the colors in this diorama. In comparison to the other colors that exist in this scene. Obviously, when they would fall on the ground, they would break, and this is what I tried to imitate by cutting them into tiny pieces. Looking back now, I think I should have tried to cut them even smaller. So probably this is a lesson for the future. Next time they will look better. Once the shingles were glued to their place, I dry brushed all of the wooden elements with white paint. This way they stand out even more through this pile of rubble. Then I dry brushed some of the shingles and some of the stones wherever I found it necessary. Then I added even more pebbles and sand, and I bonded everything together with PVA glue. Then I stuck some pretty little flowers on the outsides of the wall to add some more color on this side and make the scene a little bit more interesting. I used shrub tufts from Green Stuff World, Not too many, just to add some more variety. But now looking back, maybe I should have experimented a little bit more, perhaps with some short grass or some bushes. From the beginning, my goal was to keep the greenery relatively simple and limited, so I believe I kind of achieved that. Then I let the diorama dry, and the next day I made sure that everything was stuck in place. And finally it was time to place the main character of the scene, the vehicle. I made sure the positioning was correct and added some pebbles and stones on the sides of the tracks. This way I could make sure that my model looks realistic and it is in harmony with its surroundings. It looks like it's a part of the whole scenery. And it doesn't just look as if it's sitting on top of the diorama. The final step of the diorama was a light coating of everything using brown earth pigment from VMS. So now everything looks as if it was covered with a smooth layer of dust, which gives a nice uniformal sense over the whole diorama. Then I painted again the frame with black acrylic, and I spray coated the whole scene with a matte varnish from Vallejo. And there you have it, friends and freundins. This is the final result. How do you like it? Please tell me in the comments. I know I could have done many things differently. But the truth is, we are always learning something new with every step we make. Or is it with every step we make? Anyway, I would love to hear your opinion. If you have any comments to make, please do so. I think it is very important to a rookie modeler like myself. And if you enjoyed my video, please don't forget to press the like button, and who knows, even subscribe. Yeah, crazy things can happen. So, thank you so much for watching my video. Till we see each other again, friends. And until then, always remember,